What is up, Ravens flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. James and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome into another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin here with my co-host James Haskell. In this episode, we're going to update you on all things Ravens news as the rookies have reported. Training camp is right around the corner on Tuesday. The Ravens have made some different transactions here and there, moved some stuff around, and we wanted to keep you up to date on all the Ravens news. So, Jimbo, what's the biggest piece of this news, if you will?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece and what most people are talking about right now is Ben Cleveland being placed on the non-football injury list. Mm-hmm. And so that's the biggest piece. I think we can start there, or I figure what we could. Breland, what's his first name?
Jacob. Yep. Jacob
Breland was also placed on that list, but there is a distinction between that and then I know we have two guys placed on PUP, right?
Yes. Yeah. Ronnie Stanley and Nick Boyle were both placed on the physically unable to practice list or perform.
And we kind of expected that, don't you think?
Yeah, both are coming back from pretty big leg injuries from last season. And while they're both still expected to make it ultimately on week one, John Harbaugh kind of made it known to everyone that he wasn't so sure either one of those guys would make it to week one of training camp, or day one of training camp, I should say. But look for those guys to work their way back in. And I don't expect this to be something that lingers on, throughout the preseason games. I think this is more just taking it slow and better safe than sorry type technique.
Yeah, absolutely. But of course, we're here to focus on, like you said, the biggest news here, and that's Ben Cleveland, and provide our opinions and thoughts on the list. Now, Glenn, I think the first thing to identify is what's the distinction between that list and PUP, right? Like, why would one guy go there and another guy, go to PUP? So the non-football related injury list traditionally for the Ravens, I'm not speaking for other teams because I don't know them as intimately, but certainly is used for guys at the beginning of camp that come in and fail the conditioning test. Mm-hmm. We've had this happen in the past. But when you heard this, Glenn, what were your initial thoughts about, look, Ben Cleveland is a huge man.
Yeah.
He's listed at what, 350, 6'6"?
Yeah.
And he's got to pass this infamously hard conditioning test by John Harbaugh. So what were your initial thoughts when you heard about it?
Yeah, so I immediately thought of Jihad Ward, and when he left the Ravens this past offseason, you could tell he wasn't thrilled to leave. He loved his time with the Ravens and was, but took the best offer for him and went down to Jacksonville. But obviously showed that he would miss being a Raven. But the one thing he did tweet, he said, the one thing I won't miss about being a Raven is that conditioning test. It is no joke here in Baltimore. And we've really heard those sentiments echoed by a lot of veterans who've come to the Ravens from other teams, saying that this is the hardest conditioning test in the NFL. And John wants to make sure that you're you're able to get through a demanding training camp practice without injury. And the way he decides to gauge that is putting together a test. Now, Jimmy, we are fortunate enough that you have a little bit of experience with this test. And as a guy who, runs, who likes to train and stuff like that, tell the fans your experience trying to match the same exact test that Ben Cleveland may have just failed.
Yeah. So the way they break it down is by position. And so last year I figured I can do the lineman one, right? So you have 6 sets. I don't remember exactly what the numbers are. I think you have to do each. So it's an up and back. It's 120 yards in total. Mm-hmm. So it's an up and back, and I think you have to do it in less than 27 seconds. Is I think what it is, and then you have a rest period. You have a rest interval that's very short. Usually, I think it's equivalent, and then you go again, and then you rest, and you go again, and then you rest. And so I got to the 5th one, being a 40% my weight is the total weight, or excuse me, 40% of my total weight is accumulative to the weight of Ben Cleveland. So I could not pass. I mean, I guess if my life depended on it, I could pass the test, but not casually. I mean, I was trying really hard. I could not pass the conditioning test for the lineman. Look, I'm no world-class sprinter, but like you said, Glenn, I mean, I get out there and I get after it. And
just ran the Baltimore 10-miler, right?
That's right. Yeah, I do all right. I landed in the top 6%, ladies and gentlemen.
And this is a guy, by the way, Jimmy, you weigh what? 165?
I'm like 158, 160, yeah.
And he's literally 200 pounds more than you, and he's expected to do something that you could not accomplish. That's so.
Yeah.
Fans, don't be too hard on Cleveland.
Yeah.
Now, we expect him to be able to do this because all the linemen next to him on either side are all expected to do so as well. And it seems like he's one of the few that didn't pass the test. So we expect him to, but let's not be too hard on him because this is not an easy test. I mean, it's exhausting. And Jimmy, who runs and does so a lot, couldn't do it at 200 pounds less.
Yeah, absolutely. It is no joke. The struggle really to me is the fatigue. Cardiovascularly, I feel like I can handle it, but your legs turn into jello, man. I mean, they just turn into jello, something like it's ridiculous. I mean, you think of basketball and like suicides when you're a kid, you can do them forever. But this is something different. It's brutal. And the other thing I'll say too is that I agree with you. I think people are going to give Ben a hard time, but it's only been the rookies so far, if I'm not mistaken, that have reported.
Yeah.
So not all the linemen have done it yet.
That's
not
true.
all the other position groups have done it yet. Ladies and gentlemen, let's not forget that Jacoby Jones, I understand that the times are different for receivers, but Jacoby Jones failed this test.
The guy can run.
Yeah. I mean, pigeon toed and all, that guy can book it, right? Like, I'm pretty sure that at 50 years old, he's still going to be dusting half the guys in the NFL. Like, that's just, I think you said it before, out the womb. I mean, the guy's the road runner, right?
Yeah.
No stretching, no nothing. He said he hates stretching. Like, he's just born fast. So I think it puts it in perspective. I'm not super concerned about it. I know that if you remember, Bryant McKinney was put in John's doghouse
he failed it a couple times, if I remember.
Yeah.
Correctly.
So as long as Ben can get through it, then I'm not going to, I don't think this will have any impact on the position, him winning the left guard spot. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. So where are you? It doesn't sound like you're too concerned yet. But where do you think this has any impact on his opportunity to win that spot?
Well, I think the only way it would is if this failing of the conditioning test lingers past this upcoming Tuesday when the vets arrive. If Bredesen, Powers, Tyree Phillips, all those guys pass it and Ben is still struggling to do so, I mean, at least those initial reps are going to be going to somebody else. And as a rookie who's trying to start week one, he needs every rep that he can get, especially when you're entering a complex run offense. I mean, this is an offense that, as far as running the ball goes, is as complex as you'll see in the history of the league. So this isn't something, you can just pick up without reps. You need to be out there with your team. And also, that might be the position group that requires the cohesiveness, the chemistry, the most of any position group is that offensive line. You need to build a bond with the guys on either side of you. And if that bond is being built with Ben Bredesen or Ben Powers in there instead of you, they're not going to be so quick. Look, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Well, I don't even know what that's from.
That's Wizard of Oz.
Oh, gosh. Look at me.
What's the matter with you, man? What's the matter? These young bucks nowadays. But yeah, if one of those other guys who've already been on this team, who know the offense, now get to start in that spot ahead of him. And also, you mentioned the doghouse. That's a very real thing here in Baltimore. If John Harbaugh, thinks you came in out of shape or you're loafing on your test, that's not going to make him want to give you first team reps in an important training camp. So that would make me a little concerned. Now, he's going to have plenty of opportunity to pass it before we get to that point, and I have all the confidence in the world he'll do so. But at that point, if we still are hearing about this on Wednesday next week, then I'm going to start to get a little bit more concerned. But we're obviously not there yet, and it's a wait-and-see process. But, we talked about the PUP list as, kind of expected. We thought that Ronnie Stanley would start there. But with the lack of an obvious swing tackle. I mean, I think Phillips is the guy, Schofield. There's guys on the team, but I'm not sure how confident we would be feeling if any of those guys were at left tackle. And I don't expect them to take Big Al, who's now transitioning to right, and put him at left while Stanley needs the time to recover. So I think whoever it's going to be, it's not going to be Alejandro at left. So at what point do you start getting concerned about the left tackle position with when you see Ronnie Stanley is on the pup and he won't be out there, at least for this initial part of training camp?
You bring up the cohesiveness, and I think it's a concern and a good point, but I'm not super concerned yet. I think at the end of the day, they're going to have Villanueva stay at the right side because he needs his reps there, and he needs to get used to playing next to Zeitler and in that role. And maybe that's why they've had Andre Smith, I think, before the injury even, but maybe he'll get an opportunity to prove himself. Maybe. And like you talked about Schofield, I think it's more of an opportunity for somebody else than it is a worry of mine as of right now, because Ronnie is a plug and play, right? As long as he can get out there and do it, he doesn't got to do much thinking, right? Like, he's an all-pro. This is his job. This is what we paid him top dollar to do. So I feel all right. I'm not super concerned about Ronnie, but I agree with you. If by Wednesday of next week this thing is still an issue, that actually has me more concerned, because I had high hopes for him. And think about John. John had to say, man, I was pounding on the desk for us to take you, and you failed your test.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I was excited. This was probably the most excited John was of any pick.
Oh, he was cheesing so big.
Right. At least visibly, right?
Yeah.
So, man, I wonder what John felt like when he didn't pass. I wonder how bad it was, too.
Probably just disappointment, right?
No, I wonder how bad he felt. Like, how many reps?
Yeah. Did he out and out flunk it? Did he miss it by a few seconds?
Right. And the other thing, too, let me say this really quickly. I didn't pass the test. There's a video going around where Ryan Mink passed. I swear his times, they were not right. Like,
really?
I think the rest time, at least according to what I had from information from the Ravens, was different. So,
yeah, because we got it from Mr. Downing, Garrett Downing, right?
And I'm pretty sure they were different than the video that was put on by Ryan Mink, because I know I can dust.
I was going to say, Ryan Mink is faster than you, Jim?
No, there ain't no chance. No chance. I'm on record, Ryan. If you watch the show, sorry, there's no chance.
If he wants the chance to prove it,
let's do it.
Lace him up.
Let's go. But on a more important note, I wonder how bad it was, because I heard one year Brian McKinney, or that year, I already started walking.
Not a good look.
No, and so I hope Cleveland didn't do any of that. I don't suppose that he did, but yeah, I just wonder how bad it was. Now I'm a little more concerned I was at the beginning of the video.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to lose those important reps when you're
because
rookie.
He did not do good in college, not because he didn't have the brains, but because he didn't care enough. And so, like, it doesn't sound like to me Ben Cleveland is a preparation type guy. Like,
well, he did always say that those struggles he had in college were ultimately in the classroom. Like,
that's what I'm talking about. So, like, I feel like he didn't do well, not because it's hard academically, but he didn't care enough to prepare. And right. I get it. He's a football player first. But at the end of the day, I feel like the lack of preparation, I'm not the best guy being prepared either. Right? Like, so maybe he just wasn't doing it regularly and was like, I'm going to wing it type guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
you can't wing it when it comes to the Ravens conditioning test, obviously.
No. And then John also said, when Michael Pierce, you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
That issue. And the conditioning test is about, like you said, it's about safety, not only from an extremities type injury, but from a heart, right? Yeah. Like, you need to these are huge humans. We need to make sure their heart can handle the work that they're about to be put through. So I'm nervous that John, he had him on a pedestal, and now he might have, he might be in John's doghouse.
You don't want to be in the John Harbaugh doghouse, because it doesn't matter really. It seems like you can be a pretty talented guy. If you're in that doghouse, that's what it is. You're going to be on the sideline while someone maybe even less talented than you is getting those reps because you did something to really annoy the coach. And he's.
I just talked you just talked to me, and I just talked myself into being more concerned about it. I'm literally like.
Well, the good news is we could hear news tomorrow that Cleveland has passed his test, and those worries are now gone, and we would expect him. And that's why I think, the rookies come in a little bit earlier for stuff just like this, because they're not accustomed to it. Now, sure, they got the news and they got told, hey, this is what's going to be expected when you come back. You better be in shape to run this test. But like you thought, when you went into that test, you thought, if those big 350 pounders can do it, I can do it. I run all the time.
Yep.
And you were in for a bit of a rude awakening there. So Maybe that's the case here. But let me just fill them in on the other transactions made today. It looks like Ataro Alaka also on the PUP list, and Iman Marshall, cornerback, who's really fighting for a roster spot. So, Iman Marshall being on this PUP list is not good for him and his chances of making this team.
And unfortunately, nothing new, right?
Yeah, been banged up since he's been a Raven, and it's unfortunate because when he first got hurt that first year, we're like, oh, they're just stashing him, but now it's becoming certainly a trend, and it could lead to him ultimately finding his way off of the Ravens roster. And then also Juwan James, no surprise here, he was on the non-football injury list, still battling back from the Achilles tear he suffered just a few months ago. So, no surprise there. But other than that, also good news, Pat Ricard, not on the list. He's ready to go, dealing with a hip injury, coming back from that, passed the conditioning test, was hyped to do so. And then also Tavon Young, not any issues with the knee. He's right now, he's on track to play in training camp week 1, day 1. No PUP list for him as of right now. So fingers crossed that Tavon can stay healthy and finally put together a full season here in Baltimore, and really just, cement himself in this league, because this might be a make or break year for him as far as keeping himself healthy and on the field, because no matter how good you are, if you're not on the field, you're not helping your team.
Yeah, absolutely. So let us know what your guys' thoughts are. What we really want to know is what's your concern level about Cleveland? Ben Cleveland not passing the test, coming in seemingly unprepared. There's really no other way to put it. He knew what the numbers were going to be. He didn't hit the numbers, right?
Yeah.
But are you concerned, not concerned? Where are you on the concern-o-meter? Let us know what your thoughts are. Who are you most excited about not being on the PUP? You excited about Tavon? And any concern around Ronnie and even Nick Boyle? Let us know all your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll talk to you guys soon.